How you doing? My name is um, Mr. Rev Comrade Rowley, and welcome to CLACCA ULC Homegroup Bible Studies. If you're just logging on, we just had some initial technical difficulties because there was a power outage earlier. So I do apologize for the late running of today. Today we're going to be talking about Genesis 16, and essentially, this is very much it's all about naming and uh, very much focused back on Israel's history. Behind, we know it was written sometime between 850 and 550 A. The author is Moses. In terms, and it also very much, as I said at the beginning, it traces very much the origins and history of Israel. This is very much focused on Hagar naming of the deity, um, and essentially it's a story that's focused on the expulsion of Hagar, which is told twice according to sources J, P, and E within the text. Um, it's very much an ethnographic story about the ancestry of the Arab peoples, the Ishmaelites, and um, there's several things going on. Firstly, there's a version of the patriarchal blessing. Some interpreters will um, say that this is a demonstration of cisgender heteronormativity, but I think there's something deeper going on within this particular text. In that it's not holding cisgender heteronormativity as the only deal. So I think, but however, there is a link to the experience of what LGBTIQ people go through in terms of being excluded on discriminatory grounds. There's the other thing too is it's very much talked about the pregnancy of Hagar, the Egyptian. Um, so essentially, the situation is that Abraham, in order to continue the royal line, needs to produce a child. Um, it gets discovered that Hagar has fallen pregnant, and so essentially the motion is put to basically exclude Hagar as soon as she becomes pregnant. Yahweh, in the midst of this, has heard Hagar's affliction, and then seeks to restore Hagar to the place. There are two things. Firstly, it's important to remember that there's the dynamic going on between Hagar and Sarah, but then there's also the dynamic between of Hagar um, being childless. So essentially, um, she has to go to Sarah in order to let her know. No, according to the text, it says here. Um, and Abraham listened in the voice of Sarah, and so after Abraham had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, Sarah, Abraham's wife, Hagar, the Egyptian, her slave girl, and gave her to her husband Abraham as a wife. He went into Hagar, and she conceived. Um, and when she saw that she had conceived, she looked with contempt on her mistress. mistress. So mistress. And then Sarah said to Abraham, may the wrong done to me be on you. I gave my slave girl to you, to your embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, she looked on me with contempt. May the Lord may the Lord judge between you and me. But Abraham said to Sarah, your slave girl is in your power. Do to her as you please. Then Sarah dealt harshly with her, and she ran away from her. So essentially, because Hagar has fallen pregnant, pregnant, essentially, and because Sarah fall pregnant, um, she's sent away, because an act of adultery has been committed here. But essentially, God chases after Hagar. It's important to remember in verse 16:7 that God chases after Hagar. The angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, the spring on the way to Shur. And the angel said, Hagar, slave girl of Sarah, where have you come and where are you going? And she said, I'm running away from my mistress Sarah. And the angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit to her. And the angel of the Lord also said to her, I will so greatly multiply your offspring that cannot be counted for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said to her, now you have conceived and shall bear a son, and you shall call him Ishmael. Now, so essentially, there are two interpretations. One interpretation says that Hagar was initially sent away in disgrace because she had fallen pregnant. A queer perspective, perspective looks at the dynamic of that. Perhaps Sarah and Hagar may have had a relationship. For whatever the reason, God intervenes in this situation. That whatever has happened in this particular case, God has rightly said that not be excluded and shall be expelled in this particular situation, and seeks to restore Hagar to this particular situation. In front of this particular text, this is very much a call for compassion and justice. Justice, because of the fact that it's important to be clear that in this particular case, that simply because Hagar fell pregnant, simply because Hagar was not married, was the other woman in this particular case, God said to restore Hagar, because of the fact that she had provided a continuation of the in a situation where Sarah couldn't produce a child, but Hagar was able to. And it's an example of how God's love in a situation in which the Hagar, the Egyptian, she was the only one able to produce. God seek to restore her. God seek to restore her, even though Sarah had wanted to dismiss her. To dismiss her. I think what can be learned from this is that God, regardless of the situation, always stands on the side of the refugee and the alien, while at the same time doesn't dismiss the injustice that happens, but seeks to very much seeks justice and compassion in a situation in which um, Hagar had fallen pregnant. Hagar had fallen pregnant, and it was certainly an unexpected pregnancy. But in this particular what God seek to do in this particular case was not to disregard the other woman, but seek to restore her. Um, Seeks to restore her in a situation in which all too often unwed parents are so easily to be dismissed and dismissed. Which is that it is that Abraham listened to the voice of Sarah, and and it was initially consented. It was very much a case that both Sarah and Abraham had initially consented to this, to this, and God could see very clearly that considering you had consented to this, that it was not okay to disregard Hagar simply because she fell pregnant out of that conception, and so I think that's the important lesson to be learned here, is that refugees all too often get scapegoated and get scapegoated for the real injustices that happen in our world. And I think this sends an important message of justice, of showing justice and passion, not only for in the case of refugees, but G's, and that it is not always the exclusion is not always the fault of the excluded souls, and it calls us into question. It calls us to examine the behavior of those who point the finger at us first before judging the excluded. That's all for now. Thank you very much for joining us. Please join us for Home Group Bible Studies, 3 p.m. Every Sunday. And I will see you at 5 o'clock for CLACCA ULC Church. Thank you very much. God bless. And I will see you at 5. Bye.